And we're live. What's up, dude?
This is so funny. Such an interesting way to. I thought it would be on Spotify, not like online on their website type of thing.
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know exactly how they determined how the back end or the recording end of this work. I think they had this was an app called Anchor, and that Spotify bought them out. So it could be that they just didn't integrate them into like the same app. Um,
I'm curious
who
how
wants?
Rogan does it then, and like all the people who are like paid by Spotify to be on Spotify. Like they for sure made them something that's so user friendly.
It's either that or they just or maybe they just record. By the way, Munch is up and he's milk drunk. He's
Love it.
he just he just pounded 6 ounces and is now smiling at my face and poking my chin. Um, but
A
I
usual
think
Thursday.
I bet they just set up a camera and they just record and then upload it. Like that just might be like I don't know if they even use an app necessarily. You know.
Ah, probably not. They probably have a whole system. He paid him $100 million to do his podcast, so I would imagine they have the tech and everything.
Yeah, something like that. But even people that don't, even if you're not Rogan, even if you're Huberman or you're Lex Friedman or, you're anyone, like, I'm sure that they just record it and upload it. I don't know that they use one of these apps like this, or they have producers or a team that'll do it for them. But
For sure.
we're pretty far away
Growing
from
pains
that.
for you. Yeah,
We're,
it's growing pains.
yeah, I'm cool with it. How's your Wi-Fi? How's your service? Your service is okay?
I'm in my apartment, and I hear the munch boy, but
Yeah.
I'm good with certain. Can you hear me well?
Hey, I hear you. I just want to make sure that we're not gonna break up in the middle. Listen, dude.
Nah, as you know, I don't intend
We're
on
gonna
leaving the
do
house
this, and you're
tonight,
gonna have
so
to leave for this. Okay, cool beans, dude. So what's going on? So you got food poisoning?
I think so. Something like that happened, and then all of a sudden, middle of the day, middle of like an experiment, I'm like, that like sort of like
The drop.
spear feeling. Yeah, like the drop. You have that little like spear feeling on the left side of your stomach, and then you just go and you're just like, uh-oh, or like Scooby-Doo, like rut-row, and you're like, run.
Yeah.
So that was that. But I'm home now. I drink a lot of water. Gonna take a tea and take it easy.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to I guess end the episode with a l'chaim. I think Zach's gonna walk through the door at some point in the middle, I think. And also,
Ah,
even though the app is limited to an hour, um, if we're in the middle of talking, I think you could just keep on recording and just splice them together. So if that's
oh,
the case,
interesting.
then we'll do that. But
Sounds good
I
to
want to
me.
put the little dude to bed at some point because he didn't take a nap yet today, and
Ooh.
it's 12:30. Um, so what'd you eat? What do you think gave it to you? Or do you
I
think
have
it's an
no
anxiety
idea.
thing?
Usually my stomach's an anxiety thing, and that's definitely something that's going to be on the internet now. So, all right, well,
But it's been better recently, right?
yeah, it's been better. It depends on what's happening, moving and PhD and jobs and all those things, and then living in a war-torn country is
Mm-hmm.
also a lot of anxiety-driven stuff. But it's definitely gotten better. Definitely learning how to deal with it more better than I did in high school or in college when I would come visit you and just be like, yeah, I'm gonna be in the bathroom for the next 3 hours.
Yeah, but it was more when you were when traveling, when you were like getting on a bus or
Yeah.
getting on a train and like not knowing when and where the next bathroom's gonna be, right?
No, for sure. That's still a thing. That's like a just it. I always say like I wish I had an anxiety of like, not stomach. Like I wish I had a nauseous anxiety. Like I'd rather be nauseous than have stomach pains.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
But
more of an interesting one.
I used to have I forgot what they called it. It was it's not a nervous tick because I don't think it's really a tick, but it was I wouldn't be able to get a full breath of air. Like I'd feel like
I remember that when you eat.
no, well, it's when I'm it's either when I'm it's either when I'm really full or it's when when I'm really stressed out about something. And it used to be a lot more prevalent in high school when I'd be like stressed out about tests or whatever. Like I feel like I would take these deep
Shortness of
breaths
breath.
and yeah, I would take these deep breaths, but it wouldn't ever feel like my lungs were actually getting
Mm.
the full thing. And then and my brain and then separately on tests, my brain would just turn off. But yeah, I mean that breathing sensation. I mean, for the most part, it doesn't really happen to me anymore, very frequently.
Yeah.
But whenever there's something like pretty serious, I mean, right now, I think the way the way that I've conquered it is by detaching myself from the stressful moments. Like I'm about to buy a house,
Right.
and I'm about to spend all the money I've saved in the last 10 years, and made in the last 10 years,
Right.
and like I'm just disassociating myself from that experience, because I think that if I really just like sat on it and wait on it, and it would just sit in my mind like it used to,
For
then
sure.
I wouldn't be able, then I would just have a heart attack.
You're sort of like really removed, where it's like you're not like the way I used to do it is that, like, when I first moved to Israel, I would see shekels come into my bank account and like not really associate it with money. So like if I'm not Scrooge McDucking it and jumping into a pool of my own cash, like I don't really like it. Still sort of does that to today, like sort of like that aloofness, if that's even the word for it, of like, oh, like the money's in the bank, but I don't really see it, but I know that I pay rent and I know I pay these things, so I imagine that's like something similar to what you're experiencing, but definitely an interesting like
I
to
I
just.
feel I feel better about money in the bank than I feel about cash. I
Mm,
feel like if I have 5 grand in my bank account, and I have $200 cash in my pot in my wallet, which I never do because I never carry cash around. But if I do, if I play poker or something like that, and I happen to have $100 or $200 cash, or I'm buying
right.
weed, and I'll
Is that safe to say in New York?
yeah, it's legal in New York, medicinally and recreationally. Um,
What we like.
even though I may or may not be doing it in other states, but I
Plead the fifth, not confirm nor deny.
but either way, I consider the cash already spent because it's not in my bank account, right? So like
Right.
I have my credit cards, and I'll look take a and I'll compare. Okay, I make payments. I'm pretty neurotic about it. I make payments like every week or two, and then I'll just at the end of the month be okay. This is the money that I have, and like that's what I have, and I don't count cash. So
Right.
I'm a lot more quick to spend cash than I am. Like in my head, it's already gone. So I'm a lot more quick to spend cash than I am to swipe a credit card or to send money from my bank account.
I hear that. Well, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, now I use one app that's really good. I forget what it's even called, but it's like a money management app. So like even the cash
Rocket
I use, like
Rocket app?
no Rocket's on every podcast. No, Rocket's is like, do you have Rocket? Do you want to save money? And I'm just like, no, go away. I want to
Yeah,
spend all
dude.
of my money.
My friend Kiwi found out that he had 3 different Netflix subscriptions like under his account at one point, and he was like,
That's
"What
actually
am I
really funny.
doing? It's like an extra $80 a month." It was crazy, but
Netflix is that much now?
I think I mean they have different tiers, right? So they have the advertising tier, which is which I think is the cheap. It's by far the cheapest, but it has the most ads. They
Yeah.
have regular, and then you could up the premiere, and then I think you could also have a different number of screens. So right now I have the premiere, but I don't have the screens. So everyone in my family and all my friends have all my logins. so so now if more than like 2 people watch it, no one else can watch. And every night it's just a cycle of people just texting each other who's on what
Get off.
Netflix and what's going on. Yeah. And I told my
I've
dad, I didn't tell him yet. I want to tell my dad at a certain point, like, you cut cable and you're saving yourself $70 a month, just get your own stupid Netflix account. But I feel bad doing that, you know.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, listen, it's the I guess it's the pain of keeping it.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
very
But he
interesting
still
because
pays my
I've
phone
never.
bill, so it's a
He
trade-off.
still is.
He
Here's a
pays.
question: Is Rachel on your family's phone bill?
You know what? She actually just switched onto it. I
Mm,
don't know why. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, and apparently neither does my family. But she I think is now on our plan. Um, but I think our plan's a business plan because my dad. I don't know. I don't
yeah,
know. I
you
think
guys
it's like
have been.
I think phone might be a business expense. Um,
No, it's for sure is. There's no way your dad, as the businessman as he is doing something that's not smart.
yeah, spending money on something that's not a business expense. Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, everything's a business expense.
Yeah, we're pretty good about it. I think he has guidelines from his accountant of what to
Golf
do.
cart, business expense.
Golf cart is not a business expense. Golfing might be, depending on what business you're in and how large of a corporation you are and how much
Oh,
they
for
let you get away
sure.
with, what strictly let you get away with. But I don't know that my dad could buy. I mean, this golf cart's pretty crappy, relatively speaking. It's definitely older. The alignment's all off. You probably paid
Right.
$1,000 or $1,500, but it's a ton of fun. I
Definitely
mean,
worth it.
and my little brother and Ari goes flying around, the neighborhood on it, and
Oh
he
my
just
God,
zips
that's
over to
so
his friends'
funny.
houses. Yeah, it's crazy. Imagine growing up with a golf cart and just going through Edison. You
How
know,
about
just
this? Imagine if we took the golf cart all the way to what's that town again, as opposed to walking and taking plasma cars? And that's a story and a half.
which one?
We took plasma cars all the way to Woodcliff Lakes.
Yes, we did. That was.
So
I forgot that we did that. I forgot that we took the
yeah,
plasma car, but we only took one with us. So
I
the plasma cars are these little. I'm looking at one right now in my parents' living room. Yeah, whatever playroom. It's about a foot tall, a foot and a half tall, and maybe 2.5 feet wide, for context, right? Or 2.5 feet long, rather, and so pretty small, meant for children. And then senior year of high school, we discovered that. Did you come then with Mitch and it was someone else?
no, you're mixing up the stories. Then
No, I know
we
you mixed
were
up the stories, but that was the first time we used the cart. No, the first time we
no.
used the
So I
plasma cart.
remember back in the day. I remember you. I think we all were together. I don't know if we used it, but we definitely didn't travel with it. But you're forgetting a very integral part of the story where we went
That
to
I'm six
Woodcliff
four
Lake.
and I'm squeezing myself onto
Besides for that,
yeah.
our goal was to get there, but we also took a really long cardboard like pole
It
to
was a
pull
bat.
each other.
I thought it was a baseball bat,
No, it
a
was a
wiffle ball bat.
no, dude. It was it was literally. I don't know where we got this idea.
Okay,
All
so
of a sudden,
context is that we're going. I had a girlfriend at the time, and my college girlfriend, and she lived over in New Jersey, and I'm from New York. But this town, Rockland County, is a really borders New
it's a
Jersey. It's
border
like,
town.
yeah, I mean it's 5 miles from Mawa, and maybe 25 miles from Bergenfield and, the rest of North Jersey. And Woodcliff Lake was 12 miles, 10 miles where she lived at the time. And
Something like that.
yeah, and she was going through stuff. And this was it Chag
It
or
was
was it,
Shavuot.
yeah, Shavuot. It was a holiday. We couldn't drive. Um, and so we were like, you know what? Like, she was going to be miserable. Why don't we go together to visit her? And it was a 12-mile walk, right? Or something like that. And so we
Yeah.
took this plasma car, and and we figured that if we get tired or grumpy, which both happened,
Yep.
that we would, that one of us would sit on the car and the other one of us would pull the other one and conserve our energy. Which, if you think about it, doesn't really work very well. But
Nope.
how old were we at the time? You think we were probably 20, 21?
Maybe. I don't
We were
remember.
dating.
I think we were 21.
Yeah, because we started going out when I was, I think, 19 or 20. We dated for 2 years. I think that was towards the end ish of our relationship. Um,
You guys broke up my first year when I moved to Israel. So I remember also getting that call. That was an interesting one. It was like 6:30 in the morning.
it
I
was
was waking
November.
up.
I remember it was November. I remember not having a
Yeah.
plan. Go ahead.
You remember not having what?
I didn't intend to do it. I didn't intend on breaking up after 2.5 years. It just kind of
Right.
happened.
It just happened.
Yeah.
No, I remember because you sent me a text and it was Sunday in Israel we work. So I was going to work in the lab and I get this text from you saying we insert girl's name here, and I just broke up. And I'm like, whatever, you're joking, all right, whatever. And then 2 minutes later, you're like, no, seriously. And I'm like, you're still joking now, whatever. I'm like still getting dressed, like I'm going through my like morning routine and whatnot. And all of a sudden, you call me, and you're like, dude, I'm gonna tell you this straight. We just broke up, and then you basically hang up, and I'm like shocked. I'm like
Yeah, I
shell
did.
shocked. I'm like, whoa.
And that was if that was a Sunday, then it happened 2 days earlier, and I just didn't process it. I remember
Yeah.
I called my grandfather. I didn't speak to anyone about it. It happened. We didn't really know like what like we she came to my apartment. We were just talking in general, and I think we
Hmm.
were just going through a relative rough patch. By that point, we were dating for a long time. We wanted to talk about getting married, and my mom had said that my mom, who's the extremely emotionally in tune and has her values straight and her head on straight, said, I really, you could do whatever you want. You're an adult, but if you want me, if you want my support with this, in any kind of way, like your relationship has a problem. Um, and we should talk about and you should think about it, or you should talk about it, or you have to acknowledge it and do something about it before you move on, because just getting married is not going to be it's not going to provide any kind of solutions. It might make you short, it might be
It
a
doesn't solve your
band-aid.
problems.
Yeah, exactly. And it might be exciting, it might be fun, it might put the problem in the in the back closet for a little while, but at some point the door is going to open again, and
Right.
you're going to be married, and it's going to be about and that ended up being the case with the next like three girlfriends of mine where
Yep.
it all worked, it was all nice and fun, and we had whatever problems, and we tried putting away in the background, and it didn't happen. um, and then
Because you had
but after that first girl, after my college girlfriend, I I was more aware of the fact that this could happen, this could exist, and
right.
so I was at the time I was really pissed off at my mom about that. I didn't talk to her for like a couple of days. What does she know? What does she know about my relationship? She doesn't know anything about me. I've been living in, Binghamton for the last like 3 years, and I come home every like 4 or 5 months. Like, what are you talking about? How do you know anything? And then I was like, oh
Right.
damn, she's 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 right. And so it all kind of boiled up. So a couple of months after, this was over the summer. We broke up in November. So for those couple of months, I went through a phase of denial, and then not knowing what to do about it, and then kind of being aware about it. And then once I was aware of it, it just like spilled out one day, and then we just broke up. And I didn't know what to do, because at that point all my friends had graduated, because this was my last. I was going to graduate a semester later, because I took that extra
Right.
half a year in Israel abroad, so I was a semester behind. So she was the only friend that one of the only friends that I had at the time, or people that I had in college at the time. Everyone else graduated,
Right.
and I was like, oh my god, I have another 3 months here, and I have no idea what I'm taking two classes. I'm taking like a like a history class and a gym class or something stupid like that, and I have nothing going on. I have no idea what I'm going to do with myself. Um,
You made it through though. You
yeah,
did
it
go
took time.
into a hermetic state a little bit. I remember that, and this was
What do
way
you mean by
before
hermetic state?
you sort of you weren't yourself. You did something that was really healthy. Obviously in the beginning we didn't think it was, but it's sort of you did a large introspective dive into what you needed, and that's when you really started reading more and started researching more and becoming a real student, not in school but of life. And like for me, like seeing that from the sideline and being all 6,000 miles away, it was very interesting to also see, because you would also, that's when it also started with your, I'm going to call them obsessions, but it's not the correct term, but with your obsessions with people, places, things. You had Walt Disney first, and you'd read biographies, and you had Bruce
No,
Springsteen,
that was
Tom.
first. The Disney thing came first. I was always like that, but I think I just turned a
It
corner
was
and
just
I needed
more,
I needed something new.
yeah. But it was definitely something that I saw more because yeah, you were reading and you bought, no, I don't know if you bought it, but you had your vinyl whatever you call it, a
Collection.
record player, and you had all these things like, and you were really like this is the person you wanted to be, but then it just became more because it was more of an introspective look on, oh wow, these 2 years were this, there are problems within myself, the way I see myself. And also you were really coming off of like your year in Israel also,
No,
like your
no, it
year.
wasn't. I was 3 years out of it. No.
No, in the sense of what I mean by that is like you were coming off the highs, still coming off
Um,
those highs of the religiosity of like still going in those shiurim in those classes that you would be taking, or you would be listening to one of the rabbis like Rav Benovitz you were listening to already 2 years after, or listening to Rav Ari's shiurim and those classes. Like that was also still like the I think the come down at that point where you started thinking for yourself and not necessarily but using what you learned and going forward with it.
yeah, I think the biggest thing that I had to go through that well, there's at the time that there's two big schools of thought that I knew I had to acknowledge after the breakup, which is that after 2.5 years, um, my my associations, especially in that college environment, all my associations with everything to do with Binghamton was was connected to her, and
Right.
everything, everywhere I went, every class I went to, every extracurricular event, every Chabad event, every soccer field, and every anything that I did at some point I'd done with her, and my association was so strongly connected to our relationship that I was like, I
Right.
have to get out and I have to create new, not to go crazy, but just to create new associations to like rewire my brain that not everything not everything associated with college has to be associated with her. So I spent the next couple of months really like doing a ton. Like
Yeah.
I was just like I have to do the other thing was though that I didn't allow myself to really feel anything about it. And so I kind of shoved those so while I should have felt out the breakup, I didn't, and it ended up, coming it's actually do you watch Inside Out 2 yet?
I did not. I need to.
Oh, you gotta watch it, dude. So anyways, at some point basically I just shoved everything to the back of my subconscious, and I thought it was gone, and I thought I was great, and I thought it was great, healthy and everything like that. And then, like a year and a half later, it came storming back with a vengeance.
Right.
Like I was like, nothing. Yeah, I'm not gonna find anyone. Everything about her was perfect. My life was like I don't know why I gave it up. This was like a me thing. I have to work on myself. This has nothing to do with
You know what destroyed that?
what?
What destroyed that was when you called her.
Oh yes! Wow, good call. Yeah. Um,
You were, what was interesting is that you called her, and basically the minute after, I think you gave me a call or sent me a voice note or something,
yeah.
and basically said, I'm fine.
Yeah, that's I remember that because at that point that closed the door between my ridiculous associations or expectations of who she was, especially because this was a year and a half, 2 years later out of college. A lot happens, a
Right.
lot changes, um, and so at the end of the day, I called her expecting everything to pick up from exactly where things were 2 years ago, and they weren't. My life was totally different. Her life was radically, radically different. And
Right.
and just like after literally 30 seconds or a minute on the phone, I was like, oh, forget about it. Um, and then also the trip that Ari and I took to visit you was
Oh
probably
my
around
God.
that
Yeah.
time.
Wow.
It's probably around that time too, and that gave me a ton of and we talked a lot of that out between me and you, or me and Ari. We talked a lot of it out in like a way that I was really, that was the first real form of like legitimate friends therapy I think that I've had. Maybe earlier with Jason Fishman a little bit, like when you were in high school, just talking about like the
Right.
challenges, like what we're going to be.
In the cabana.
Like, yeah, in the cabana, we would play ping pong, and he was dating a crazy girl at the time, and then I was rejected from every college, and all my friends are going to, Penn and MIT and Columbia, and I gotten rejected from every college that exists, including,
Yeah.
and at that point, so that was like the first like friend therapy, I guess, session, but this was like the first mature adult one that we've gone through, and I think that's one of them. I think that that's what keeps us together, is the fact that our friendship goes, beyond what's circumstantial, and we kind of we know that we could count on one another to even if there's no solution, just to get it out and just to say, I'm so fucking pissed off right now. I don't know what to do. I feel so lost. I'm just so, down or up, or it's just like having someone who you feel like you could say that to. And then the second it comes out of your mouth, you're like, okay, now I'm good. Let's
Yeah,
just fuck.
I mean
Yeah.
that's if you recall our rule was I don't know if it's a rule, but definitely what we did is okay, I heard you, but can I throw it back in your face right now? And that's like
Yeah.
one
Because
that really
because
got us
eventually,
through.
that's because we never listened to each other.
That's a different story.
Yeah, I
Oop,
keep on
did I
going.
lose
Now, what
you?
were you saying?
Oh, I didn't. I thought the connection was bad. No,
No,
but
but
it was very. It's a very interesting way that we went about things, and I think it was quote unquote mature beyond our years because it's sort of the same question that I use in my relationship now is like, do you need logic or do you need love? And
you need
it's not to
both.
say you
You have to
don't
know when to
you
take it.
exactly. So when I go to my significant other and I tell her, okay, like you're having a hard time, do you need me to logic this out for you? Or do you need love? And it's sort of the same concept that we learned from each other over the years, where it's like initially we would listen and be like, okay, I heard you, but let me now tell you why you're wrong, or let me tell you why you're stupid, or oh, you're actually being very smart.
Yeah.
So we went through like the gambit in that way, and we were able to really help each other. And I think it really afforded us a lot of better times than hard times.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are missing that in their lives. I don't think a lot of people, and the truth is, I don't have a ton of friends that I could do that with, where, because I mean, aside from the fact that it's uncomfortable and it's vulnerable, and people just in general don't like the notion of vulnerability and the idea of being open and making themselves susceptible to ridicule, or that they're flawed or imperfect. Um, at the end of the day, we need to talk these things out, and it does worlds for people to just get the words, from their head, where it just sounds so much worse or feels so much worse,
Right.
out into the world, into conversation, into something else, and and when it's finally accomplished, even if there's no resolution, you feel better. You just feel better about it.
For sure, I think exactly to that point. As I think we've spoken about it. I speak about it with a lot of people. It's the Tinder generation. It's like if you don't like it, if you don't like someone, or you don't like this feeling, you just swipe and the next and the next and the next. So it's just like
Yeah, that's a
people
great.
don't.
Go ahead. That's a great call. It's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, it's a lot of things. It's sort of like when you get to a certain age, is also you sort of get a little bit bitter, or less bitter, or not less bitter. You have to look at it in a way where it's like you want to approach it. It's very like Amazon Prime, Tinder, instant gratification, which you and I have both learned a lot from your mom over the years, and the reason why you don't have a microwave in your house also
And
is
because my
is
mom's
instant
afraid of
gratification.
cancer, but yeah.
The I guess the Socrates reason, if I'll put it that way,
Philosophical
is
reason, yeah.
philosophical. Whatever. Listen, you're the English major, but but it's instant gratification is never going to suit you well. Yes, I'm hungry now, but waiting the 10 minutes would mean I appreciate it more. Being angry now, but also controlling your emotions and not letting it out on your partner, your friend, your family means that later on you'll be level headed and they might understand you better. So it's all these things about instant gratification. I think I don't know if it's our generation, but the quote unquote again the Tinder generation, the Amazon Prime generation, we're so used to getting all these things quickly, so we expect to heal quickly, we expect to move on quickly, we expect to get the next thing quickly. So it's just a very
Well,
interesting point and learning point.
because a lot, yeah, right. So I think that there's probably a fine line between things that are acceptable to get immediately, and things, and then understanding that, and giving things that require time and processes, giving them the time and process, you know. And
For
I don't
sure.
think it's necessarily a bad thing to have something like Amazon, or to have a microwave, but I do think that, the feeling of there's always, well, There's
It's
certain
an
things,
interesting one.
friendships, relationships, skill sets, everything that's important really definitely needs time and effort.
For sure.
One of the things actually I was talking to my students about, and I was also talking to our buddy Zach about, was in terms of the so in Jordan, one of Jordan Peterson's books, I forgot which lesson it even was, but he talks about how the fact that like the world just went very quickly from like little communities where people could feel like they're excelling, and people feel like it's a small pond, and like it's cool to get to the top, and like it gives them the confidence to like move on to the next pond and the next pond and get bigger and bigger. um, Now we're all one giant global community, which gives us even less opportunity to really appreciate the little pond that we live in, right? There is no more little pond.
For sure.
So if you're dating, right, and you're living in a town in if you're living in Teaneck, or you're living in Rockland, or you're living in Binghamton, and there's only 30 people around you that you're going to date, or 50 people around you that's your age that you're going to date, or whatever it is, right? You're going to feel like you have to take those relationships a lot more seriously. But if you feel like there's always someone else around the corner that you don't have to give this relationship the due time and respect that it deserves,
Right.
um, then then you'll never get anywhere, and even though there's more people available now, or more people on, both of us have experienced this when we were single, there's more people available than ever, but for some reason it just seems impossible to kind of make any kind of relationship or connection on any of these things.
100%. For me, it's definitely like that because when I was single, post dating someone for 3 years on and off, and I'm in Tel Aviv, which is the center of Jewish dating, which is just like the Upper West Side or just like New York City in general. It's like you would just be like another one on the list. Like I would hear people say, like I have one date on Tuesday, one date on Wednesday, three dates on Friday, and I'm just like, but that doesn't give you value. It doesn't allow you to value your time. That's number one. And then number two, it doesn't give you the time to value the person. And that's the instant gratification thing, where it's like, because of the fact that we have these apps and because of the fact that everything is so instant, you only get an instant to really give yourself to someone else. And if you don't make it in that instant, they're already on to the next.
Yeah, yeah, that's where the what do you call it really goes wrong. That's where the instant gratification really really takes a turn. And then also for things, I mean, this I have an enormous problem with this because I get overwhelmed with processes. Like if you tell
Mm-hmm.
me that something has 15 steps to it in order to achieve it, I'll be like, no thanks, I'm not doing it. But if
Don't
I
build an IKEA closet.
yeah, seriously. And by the way, that when Rachel and I moved into our townhouse, we sat without furniture for a long time until she decided to open the IKEA box and start building it. And then I'd help her out and realize like, oh my God, this isn't so bad, right? But when I look at
Right.
something, if I look at something like, okay, one step I can do, the next step I could do also, the next step I could do, I'll keep it going like that, and I can get through almost anything like that. But if you tell me at one shot there's 15 steps, I'd be like, nope, sorry, get someone else to do it. It's for someone else.
Right.
Um, that happened with also
It,
with guitar playing. With guitar playing, I
mm,
if at first I was overwhelmed, and then my teacher, who was awesome, was like, dude, just work on strumming, you know, just strumming right now. Don't worry about chords. Don't worry about words. Don't worry about memorizing anything. Just worry about strumming. Okay, I can do that. I sat and I practiced strumming for an hour a day for a week, and then
right.
and then he goes, okay, now that you did that step, try learning these chords. Don't strum. Just do the chords. Just hit the chord. And then I was like, okay, hit the chord. I practiced that for a week. He goes, now kind of get into a little bit of both. Just very basic, one or two chord changes. That's it. That's all you need to do. And I already learned how to play three songs just like that, just two chords. I was like, whoa, I could
Wow.
totally do it. Like but if you told me, but what held me back from playing music for 25 years was the fact that everything seemed so impossible to digest at one time. It didn't make any sense.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's the same thing, and it's like sort of the approach like that people have with biology. Like you don't learn the 401 before you learn the 101. with biology. Like you have to learn how an atom works. You have to learn how the physics behind it work to get to certain levels. So it's the same thing where it's like I think you had a very you were lucky to have a very smart teacher because a lot of teachers and the reason why from your last podcast where you want to have Shua learn an instrument, I really do think that's the reason why that a lot of kids don't want to do it. Or Oren said at fourth grade he learned two things and then he's like I'm done, I'm not interested. So I think it's very much like
Yeah, but isn't it cool
unfortunately.
that but he learned it when he learned it in fourth grade, and he's 26 now, and he remembers everything that he learned. Your brain is just
It's
much
ingrained.
more. Yeah, your brain is just much more um, receptive
Plastic.
to. Yeah, it's plastic. It's much more receptive to forming these very core and foundational, um, I guess, skills that that just don't go away. I bet if I didn't pick up a guitar, I mean that's not true. I'm sure I spent enough time recently in the last couple of years because I've been doing it for 3 years now. But if I didn't pick up a guitar for 15 years, you think I'd still know it?
100%. I mean, this is definitely a Huberman question when you want to go talk to him. But I
Mhm.
learned piano. I never was taught, never anything. I literally looked. I was like, okay, you play a C. This is a C. You do this, and I didn't learn anything. But I still remember the three songs that I learned on piano, and that
Yeah,
was
or
I
the
was in eighth grade.
clocks, right?
Yeah, and that's all I do. Every time I go to a piano, everyone's like, "Oh my God, what else do you play?" I'm like,
That's
"Nothing," and then
it.
I get up
Yeah. Yeah,
and leave.
but I don't remember. I remember Jason Fishman and I learned the
Pirates,
Mozart
no?
song. No, Ala Turk, Ariel and Pirates.
Ah. Whichever one that is.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to edit that out. Um,
Nah,
anyway,
keep it in. We don't edit. We
um,
don't edit till
I
episode
don't.
10.
You don't edit. Um, Anyway, I don't remember that either. So, I mean, there's probably something about going through the process slowly and deliberately, of course, that will make a
Well, you'll
bigger
see it
difference.
when Shua goes. If you do put Shua through it, you'll see it because there is not to go into it, but the neuroplasticity of kids, obviously, like they think that I think the going theory is that we're at 2-3 terabytes if you want to make it similar to a computer. So imagine having all that space and that's all they do. Like, yes, he's going to learn his ABCs and like, which is sort of more natural because language comes a little bit more naturally. But again, it's sort of like a language. It's motor skills. It's all these things that he's already developing. Like if you think about the idea of how much that your brain has to work with your motor senses to have a pen write a word, he's not going to be able to do that to the age of 4. But he's also walking, so it's a very interesting like different parts of the brain, like your frontal for language, and then again, I'm not a neuroscientist or anything of the sort, but again, it's very interesting. So it's like to sort of look at what you just said right now, like it'll be very cool to see how Shua learns it, and you'll be like, oh, okay, like I learned it this way, but he's looking at it at the first time, and he's trying to move his hands, and it's not working, and he's trying to do like a C chord, and he can't do it. It'll be very cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know whether it's going to be. Do you get discouraged when you see someone doing something for less time than you and they're better and they appear to be better than you?
That's an interesting question. I don't get discouraged. I sort of I don't know if it's making excuses, but I sort of just look at it and I'm just like, he probably had someone teaching him and I don't. Sort of like the same thing with like let's say basketball, because I think that's probably a better example. Like I look at someone like that we went to high school with, and I'm like, his parents paid for him to go to a basketball camp, and I went to like a very Zionist, we went to Mosheva. So it's like it wasn't a basketball camp; it was like go move to Israel camp. so,
Yeah, which you did.
so like,
So,
right, which is like, let's say someone who went to Seneca, and they got more playing time than me in high school, but I knew that I was more fundamentally sound. So it's like sort of those things. So I'll either make excuses. I don't know if I feel discouraged to. I definitely will work harder. Like I can confidently say, like if there's something I want to do, I will outwork anyone.
right. So when I was one of my first couple of open mics that I ever played, I was already playing guitar for a bunch of maybe 2.5 years, which is not a long time, but it's not nothing, especially if you're just starting open mics. There are people that come that are really more rudimentary than that. And this
Right.
guy gets up and he goes, "Yeah, I've been playing for about 6 months. Excuse like the bad playing." and he was like way better than me. And I went home. I didn't play guitar for like 3 months after that. I was so upset because
Wow.
I was like, I'm sitting here and I'm practicing every single day, and like, I guess I one of the things that I do incorrectly or that I'm trying to work past is if I when I have something to practice, I'll just practice what I have to practice, and I don't know how to get to the next step or the next level, you know. So
Right.
so this guy must have been practicing and then looking to get to the next level. I guess that's the problem, that I experienced when I stopped taking those lessons. But I was so upset. I wanted to quit guitar, and
Right.
just because someone stepped onto the coffee shop floor that's played for a year less than me, or a year and a half less than me, and he was better than I was. Um, but I don't know what that is
Yeah,
about me that makes you that made you want to quit it. The
I think because it's
frustration.
also because it's something that's very personal to you, but it's also personal to a lot of people. Like we don't look at NBA players and we're like, ah, I could be like that, whatever. Like it's the same sort of thing. Like less time, like people are just naturally talented, but
Yeah,
in a
because
sense where
I
it's
guess
like
because you're not expecting to be on that level of NBA players. I was expecting to
for
be on the
sure.
level of someone that's been playing for 6 months or better than
But
him.
it's also, but you're not looking at the personal story behind it. Maybe your 1 year is the same amount of time he's put in to his 6 months, right? So you don't
Yeah,
know that. So that's a
yeah,
big thing also where it's like that's how I look at it. Like even now that I'm really getting back into basketball, I'm like there are guys like that are breaking people's ankles, thankfully not mine, which would be terrible. But
right,
there are guys who are just shooting out the lights and I used to be a good shooter and now I'm in a slump that's been lasting me like a month. I'll
right,
hit a shot here or there, but like you have to think about it. Like the time you're investing, right? That hour a day that you spend could have been his whole day, right? He could have spent 12 hours playing guitar. The every night because I'm in a basketball group, every night someone is at the court. Like I can't invest that much time. I have work, I have a partner, I have homework, I have to do the laundry.
yeah.
It's just a question of like it's a real life question because it's like if you're going to invest that time and you take those 6 months, right? Just as this other guitar player did, maybe that's all he's doing. And, he's trying to make it big or he's trying to really achieve a dream as a kid that he wanted to play at open mics. And, maybe he works at Starbucks, not to discredit anyone who works at Starbucks. But again, like, it's just all these things like you're a father, you're a husband. Like I think the way to look at it is not necessarily from a jealousy aspect. And I know that's a quote unquote character flaw that you have, but it's more like, okay, like I've chosen to invest in something else. That's how I really
That's
value my
such
time as well.
that. First of all, you put that was beautifully put. Um, Number
Come
one.
a long way since my crappy high school writing that you
That
used to correct.
was, dude. That was great. And B, you're totally right. And it's funny because I had that exact realization just in a different application years ago, and it made me a lot healthier. I was I don't I'm sure you remember this. It was during COVID. I guess it was 2021 because I know that it
Hmm.
wasn't the beginning. It was towards the middle. And I was living at home, and I just everything was down for me at that point. I'd broken up with my girlfriend at the time. I was also dating for like 8 9 months. Thought I was gonna get married too, um, and I moved back home from Seattle, and I just felt like everything in my life had taken a big step back. And I was
Hmm.
turning 25.
Roughly.
I was turning 25, I believe. And so for my so I said I had to get out of the house for a little bit, um, at my parents' house for a little bit. So I flew to Miami and I spent about a week in South Florida, and then I rented a pickup truck. I rented actually it was a what was it? It was um
I don't know where this story is going, so
it
I
was a
can't help you.
convertible. It
I
was a
don't know if I
convertible.
remember it.
It was a convertible. I rented
Okay.
it for $20. It was a Mustang. That's what it was. A Mustang convertible. I rented it for $20 a day, unlimited miles, and I drove it to Austin, Texas, and back. Right?
Did Jason meet you in this one?
No, Jason was in Vegas.
Got
Eric
it.
came with me. But this so let's say I got to Florida in the middle of November. spent a couple of weeks in Florida in November, and then December 7th, which is my birthday, my friend Eric flew down. He had some time off from work. He flew down. He drove with me. We drove to Tallahassee, to New Orleans, to Houston, and then to Austin. And
Mm.
we became, and then um, and we had the best time in the entire world. And he Oh, but then the point of this whole story, there's a couple of points to that story. But one of the points to this story is that I was sitting with, I think, my either by myself or with Oren, with O, because he met me in Florida at the beginning of the trip, or he drove down with me, and he and we're talking about how I'm turning 25, and I haven't lived a Bruce Springsteen life yet. 25 years old, Bruce Springsteen put out 3 albums, was playing music all over the shore. I wasn't living a Bob Dylan life. Bob Dylan by 25 had played the Newport Folk Festival and, and was putting out all the, we wrote Blowing in the Wind and The Times They Were Changing and all these monumental experiences. And I was like, I feel like such a freaking loser that I didn't do anything with myself. I'm 25 years old, and there's so many people I look up to that have done so much by 25. And then I thought to myself, but on the other hand, I have I don't know what they were, I don't know what their lives were like. I don't know that they were
Right.
pursuing relationships. I don't know that they were, religiously, yeah, religiously in touch with their lives or practicing those, anything that of value other than what they were just doing all the time, every day. I don't know that they were keeping up with their family, that they had close friends, that they had close relationships, that they were like working on with girlfriends and trying to get married and, and
Right.
looking for the next part of life. And I was like, why am I beating myself up, comparing myself to who Bruce Springsteen is at 25 years old? You can't. There's nothing. We have nothing in common. There's nothing there that would make me think that I should be Bruce Springsteen. And Bruce Springsteen wouldn't be
Exactly.
me. And um, that was that was a big moment for me because then I stopped comparing myself at that point to who other
Exactly.
people were, and I just wanted to try to be, better about like I had 10, 15, 20 big goals that I want to achieve. I want to, be a better person. I want to be close with my family. I want to have a healthy marriage. I want to be a healthy dad and a good dad and someone that could help their kids grow into themselves and be the best version of themselves. I want to be a good friend. Like all these things
Exactly.
are as important or more important to me than just being. I want to be creative. I want to write. I want to get good at music. I want to get good at guitar. I
You
want
want
to
a
experience the
podcast?
world. I want to do podcasts. Yeah, I want to do everything. I want to teach. And so when I have all these things, I mean, what are the odds that I'm gonna be the Bruce Springsteen of whatever it was, any one thing, when I'm trying to accomplish all of them at one time? I mean,
Right.
it's like you always say, jack of all trades, master of none. Like these people probably have to sacrifice something to get where they were. To get to the point that they.
For sure. But to add to that, it's not connected. And I don't think I might have coined this term, but something that I usually tell people when it's really in relation to this, where they're comparing. I have one friend in Israel that you know, but will remain unnamed, who's been trying to get married and everything like that. And he has all these, he's always saying these things that people at shul are telling, people at synagogue are saying, oh, but when I was 30, when I was 25, I had 2 kids, 4 cats, all these
A
things. And I tell him, I was
mortgage,
like,
it's a big
hey,
thing.
a mortgage, yeah, like yeah, I have a mortgage and I own two businesses. And what I always say to him, I was like, hey, you don't know the story. Everything you just said, you don't know their story. But the one thing is that like these things, like never look at someone in that sense because you are the one who wakes up as you. They don't wake up as you
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah.
So the decisions that you make, and again, I don't know if this is I might have heard it from someone else, but a friend. It's not something that like I say this to people because I have a few friends that I've said this to, and I've used it also in my relationship. Like when it comes to decision time, yes, you can take the advice from people, but at the end of the day, you have to make the choice. And if you make the choice, like you wake up with you. That investment that you're making into your family, let's say to Shua, to your wife, to everyone, that's an investment because you want to. And tomorrow you're waking up as Ephraim and you're waking up as you. No one else is stepping into your shoes. There's no Freaky
And even
Friday
more,
going
by
on
the
here.
way, and even more than that, which I think we don't think about enough either, is just because someone has necessarily checked off a couple of these boxes of things they want to accomplish doesn't mean that they're necessarily doing it well. And
Exactly.
I became really aware of this, in the last couple of years. But just because someone's married doesn't mean they have a happy marriage. Just because someone has a
Exactly.
kid doesn't mean that they're a good dad. And
Exactly.
everything that you are taking that me or you or anyone that's taking their time to try to do well, and they look around and they see other people having done it already, and they're like, how come I can't just be there already? Listen, you could be there already if you want to if you want to eat the junk food and the candy and have the easy way out, but then
Hmm.
you feel like crap after because you weren't really
Exactly.
investing in a healthy meal, and you didn't take the time to get the right ingredients into the healthy ingredients and to cook it the right way, and instead you just opted to open a bag of junk food and eat it. Not that anyone's wives are junk food, but that their relationship could have
It could be snacks.
yeah, whatever it is. But the point is that it could that just because someone has something doesn't mean that they're doing it well, and it doesn't mean that you should necessarily envy what they want. When we have a friend, and I didn't actually experience this. I think you experienced this, way more than I have, because I don't think any of my exes have gotten married actually. Maybe a couple, maybe one or two,
I think
but
all of my exes are married.
yeah, and I'm genuinely happy for them. But if they got, and the people that got married before me, you know, a lot of people, for a lot of people, it spurs like this feeling of desperation or this feeling of having lost. Like, oh man, like they got there before me, but you don't know what their relationship is like, and you don't know that the reason why your thing
For
didn't work
sure.
out is, has been or hasn't been resolved in any kind of way. And this isn't trying to crap on anyone or trying to put anyone
No,
down
of
or anything like
course.
that. But I think that it's that when we that I think jealousy is a very natural human emotion, and I think that when people see other people achieving some um arbitrary box, like, okay, I'm married, but like there's so many other questions you have to ask. How's your relationship? Who's the guy like? What's your story like? What's your life like? What's the
Exactly.
relationship with your family or their family? Like how do you like your mother-in-law? How do you like your, like all these things make a difference. And you don't necessarily have to be jealous of anyone else. Just figure out what works for you and figure out what works for you, and your life will be great if everyone just focused on, like, if I've never been happier than when I just focus on what I'm trying to accomplish and seeing in the rearview mirror, or feeling every day like I'm taking a step towards accomplishing what's important to me, like that.
100%. I see that also where it's like in my last relationship before the current one that I'm in, it was really hard when I saw literally two, maybe a month and a half after already dating someone else. It took a
Right. That was
while to
crazy.
yeah, dating apps within 24 hours. Yeah. So it took
Well, for both of you though.
stories. No, I waited. I waited.
What, like
I
a
didn't I
week?
didn't Yeah, but once I saw she was already on, I was like, okay, whatever. You know what? She's on. That's it.
Right.
But because there was for me, it was still a little bit of respect. Like we ended because we ended. But the thing that like to really grasp and go on, maybe not grasp, but to go on the point that you made, it's like me and my ex were not going to make each other happy. And once you get to that realization, you start feeling happy for them. Like if I saw her in the street today with her husband, her new husband, I think they got married a few weeks ago, as my friends do tell me.
Okay.
Um, but I would say congratulations. Like, but it would be literally coming from a point of
You think that
we weren't
you don't think that you would
compatible.
feel anything? You think that you'd just be happy, like, for
I
her?
don't know if the word is yes,
Or
because
you'd be at peace with the situation?
I'm at peace with the situation because that's what the reality is. It's
Right.
not because it's like some hypothetical, oh, but this, but that. Like I am currently extremely happy in my relationship now,
Yeah.
you know? So it's not like it's like anything else could happen. Like the woman is married. I don't think twice about it. Like I'm happy for her because I really do hope that the flaws that we had in our relationship were solved in hers.
Yeah. I hope so
I
too.
really
I
do.
hope so too, man. And that's actually, by the way, that completely full circle. That's the point. Like, I think that's the point of why that attitude and that perspective is one of the reasons why is the reason I wanted to start this podcast, is because I think we need more of this healthy perspective out there, that's a worked on perspective, because I don't know that you would have felt this way 5 years ago, and I don't know that you would have
100%
felt this
not.
way 3 years ago, but at a certain point, if you when you go through life and you have a lot of ups and downs, or you have a lot of hurdles that you have to leap over, you can either leap over it kind of by, like, you could take the shortcut way of leaping over it, or actually do the work and become a developed person, and then realize, like, there's a healthy place where you could just be happy for a lot of people to just do their own thing, and just and be and be at peace with the fact that you're doing your thing and they're doing their thing, and
Yeah.
even though there isn't the greatest, it didn't end even if it did or didn't end the greatest way. Like, now, with when you're looking back, or now that you're out of that exact situation, you could look and you could just say, I wish you the best. I really, I hope you're happy. I hope you work out what didn't work with us, and I'm happy for you. Good luck, and I'm happy for me now, and and that's it.
Yeah.
I think that's
It,
so important.
it takes a lot to get there, and I think what really hit it for me was when I flew alone to Paris and to England, and to really just be a really just be a I was alone for majority of the time. Before, when I was in Paris, I was 100% alone.
Hmm.
I went to Disney alone,
What do you think?
and it
What
was
so
really,
so how much value do you ascribe to taking time to be alone for you to grow up, or for you to really be healthy?
I
How
don't
much
know if it's a
do you
time limit,
No,
because
but how
I've
much
been
value do you
alone.
think there is? You
Oh,
think
I think it's enormously
do you think you could have done it
enormous.
without taking that time by yourself, for yourself?
I don't think I could be the man who I am today and finally like be proud, because I remember we had calls years ago and I was like, I'm never proud of myself. I'm never happy with the work I do. And now, even with those things, like I think it's vital. I give some of my, I'll call them students, back in the day when I was madrich in
What's the
in
Madrid?
Rashid. I still
Counselor,
counselor, I
dorm
guess.
counselor. Yeah, yeah, dorm
Dorm
counselor.
counselor. I was a dorm counselor in a yeshiva in Israel for about 6 months, and I still talk to one or two of them. And I said, one of them I speak to, and I say it's integral to learn to be alone. And he's like, yeah, but I've been. He lives in London. He's like, yeah, but I've been to Paris. I'm like, dude, Paris is your neighbor.
You
Go
don't have to
somewhere
go
where you.
across the world alone. I don't think. You think you have to go?
No,
Traveling
I don't.
helps.
No, traveling helps because it's not, because it takes you out of your comfort zone. If I wasn't taken out of my comfort zone, I was going every day to my job and working. I got then the company shut down, and like I needed all those steps because I wouldn't have been able to date the person I'm dating now if I didn't. Like I wouldn't have been this. I wasn't polished, and nor am I now today. However, I was more polished, more ready, more serious, more understanding of myself after traveling alone.
For sure.
It
Right.
it
Right.
it really brings a lot of things to light. Where I was when I was walking around in London and in Paris alone, I was depressed. Like I was hardcore. Like, your life is shit. Things aren't going well. How are you
Yeah.
going to do this? And like going back to a country where I almost moved back. We had conversations. It wasn't really going to happen, but I almost moved back to America. I was looking at moving to London,
Right.
because I was just done. I was done with the place. I needed something new. But then something just clicked when I got back to Israel, where I was like, okay, like I was alone. And you know
Right.
what? I'm still alive.
When you right, and while you're going through those moments of loneliness, they're not they're almost never pleasant, but they're so important.
Yeah,
Like, they're not fun to experience. Anyone that's doing things alone. Some people enjoy doing things alone, but there are certain people that even when if you're alone and you're going through a hard time, and I've certainly had those experiences that you're talking about too. I mean, not in the exact same context, but
right.
where I just had to get out, or I was just like by myself, and I didn't know what to do with myself and everything kind of felt like shit. Um, you know, but being in that pit with yourself, and then getting out of that pit with yourself, and even if you have to talk to a friend, but the fact that, like, you're alone, like, you're like, most of what you're doing is alone, most of what you're living is alone, that provides so much value, and it gives you such a strong sense of self, like, who you are at that point, and you
100%.
um yeah, Do you
I
want to
think
cut it? Do you want to cut it here? Or do you want to go? You want to keep on going, and we'll continue because we're at 59 minutes and 45 seconds.
whatever you want to do, you tell me.
Well, Zach's about to walk in.
We can add
Well,
Zach to the.
we'll continue this conversation, other contexts, and we'll do this again soon. All right.
You got it, dude.
All right,
Speak to
dude.
you soon.
Bye.
Bye.